Keep that going. Keep that going. Oh, man. Oh, that feels good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I have not recorded a podcast. And who knows? I have no idea how long it's been since the last time I filmed or recorded the podcast here. Fucked it up already. Didn't even introduce the show. Welcome to the 3DD podcast with me, remotecontrolkev. As you can see, it's just me tonight. I figured we'd reboot here. Just a solid little update. Just you and me. Just you and me by the I guess last time I had a fire, but it's fine. We don't need a campfire this time. We're just by the computer screen, this weird little corner, this nondescript corner of wherever I am. So the podcast was a thing that I was really excited about doing, and it went great. I feel like I've talked about this a couple times, but I'm just going to treat this as if this is episode 1, because as far as I'm concerned, it is. It's episode 1 of season 2, but it's, a season that I never actually got to finish. So I feel like this is me kind of taking it from the top and giving it another shot. Because, I didn't stop the podcast voluntarily. If you're new here, which I'm going to assume like everybody is, I did one season of this podcast way pre, thing. You know what I mean? And it was because of the things that I stopped. And, it took me a while to kind of catch my stride and figure out, first of all, the technical aspect of it is nutty, like far beyond anything that I had ever expected to need to figure out. So there was a learning curve in that respect, and there was also a lot of, there was a lot of me discovering what it is I wanted to actually do with the show, what I wanted it to be, what people responded to, what made sense for, me to talk about with the kinds of people that just happened to be the types of people that I could have on as guests. And so, there was a little bit of fumbling around in the first few episodes, and now I feel like it's probably going to be a lot of the same, if I'm being entirely honest. But the reason that I started the podcast in the first place, I had a name for it, which was 3 Drinks Deep, but apparently that there was some name issues, so I just I stuck to, and also I didn't love the name, if I'm going to be entirely honest. I like the idea of it. I stand by the idea of it, which is that level of conversation that you reach, when you've sat down with somebody and you're like on your 3rd drink, and just when a lot of the inhibitions are gone and you're just free flowing, and you reach a level of openness and honesty where you just feel uninhibited. And that was my intention with it. That was where the name came from. And I think we, to some extent, got that from a lot of people. I loved doing it. It was a lot of fun doing it. And just because there's not there's not a ton of reasons to, be able to just sit down with somebody and immediately get into a certain level of conversation. And covering certain topics and talking about certain things that would kind of otherwise be a little bit strange, if not entirely faux pas, to just start talking about in casual settings where you might see, interesting people, which for me was, in places on like shoots or at the gym, or that's basically the 2 places you're going to find me. So yeah, in either of those 2 places, it could be like, hey, what do you think about life? So the podcast was, in a lot of ways, it was just kind of an excuse for me to pick people's brains about certain things and get into certain levels of conversation with interesting people like that. And like I said, we did that. And I felt more that I was catching stride with it toward the end, and got some great stuff. The very last episode that I had recorded and published was the first episode that I had done with video. And that to me was a huge key moment of I should have been doing this the whole time. But by then it was too late because certain things occurred, and all of a sudden it was not possible for me to sit across from a person anymore and have a conversation. Yeah, it's just that's what happened, and I don't know. It was annoying because I had a lot of, like I said, I was just catching my stride. I was figuring it out, and that last episode, if you had listened to it with Coach Rodrigo himself, yeah, we got some good stuff in there. Got some good little nuggets out of Coach. And people responded pretty well to it. And we had plans to do all kinds of stuff like that. We planned on doing more episodes together, he and I, and just so happened that we weren't allowed to do that anymore. So I put a pause on the whole thing just because, I mean, a couple of people had talked to me and asked me about if I was planning on doing it virtually, over Zoom, which I had absolutely zero interest in doing a Zoom podcast. That was entirely it was entirely counter to the purpose of the podcast, which was to remove, this, remove this layer, this 1 degree of separation that, between two human beings, and just be able to sit down face to face, look each other in the eyes, and really just talk. If you've ever, I'm sure a lot of you over this period have experienced, a virtual conversation, and you will know that it is not the way to really get into. It's not a way to get to know somebody. I don't think it's possible, sure, but it's just, for me, if I can avoid it, I would much rather do it this way. That was, again, it's one of the purposes of the podcast in the first place. So to do it virtually defeated the purpose of it, and it would just become something that I was doing for, what reason? I couldn't find a good enough reason. So I just nixed the entire thing and just said, we'll revisit this when it's okay to sit down face to face again. I did not know it was going to be 2 years. Okay. I did not know it was going to be 2 years before we could do it the way that I wanted to do it again. So, I mean, that's what the show is. That's what happened to it. That's why I stopped. And it was hard in a few ways to decide that I was ready to start it back up again, just because of how quickly it was whipped away from me. I just didn't want that to happen again. It was a lot of it was momentum, and a lot of it was building on the last one, and to just keep having it disrupted was something that I didn't want to risk, just because it sucks so much to be catching stride with something and gaining momentum with something and constantly having that just taken away from you. It's so frustrating to restart. And I wanted to make sure that I felt comfortable and safe at a point where if I was going to start again, that I wasn't going to, wasn't going to be forced to stop at any point. So it's still not entirely out of the question that the version of the podcast that I envision in my mind is going to be is going to be taken away again. That's always possible now. But I just felt like I was inspired enough at this point to want to revisit it. And so here we are. So welcome back, or welcome if it's your first time here. Like I said, let's just treat this as episode 1. This is the big reboot. So episode 1 with just me, the limited things that I have to talk about. Before we, because again, we will have guests, of course. We've got some amazing guests lined up. We'll get into that, but for now, it's just you and me. It's just let's just talk. Let's just let's figure out what we've figured out in the last couple of years. And the only things that I've been up to essentially the last couple of years is trying to figure out this world of creative freelancing. My career. So I figured that's, where we can come back to is just kind of check in with me and the last couple of years of what it's been like trying to figure out life as a creative freelancer. Because if you hadn't listened to the last solo episode that I had done, I talked about, at the top of the pandemic, losing my job, literally right at the peak of closures and shutdowns, losing my job probably at the worst point ever, my big corporate job, and then just being kind of thrust into, first of all, a period of nothing, and then slowly coming back and just deciding I had no other option but to just stick solely with freelance and just photography, video production, and just going full-time, full speed with that. And so if you haven't listened to that episode, I don't even remember what the hell I said in any but it'll be interesting to kind of my mindset then versus my mindset now. I don't know how different it is, but it's been about, it's been 2 years. It's been 2 years since that whole thing happened. And now I can pretty, it's still weird to me to say that this is what I do, this is my job. But it's been 2 years of practicing saying that this is what I do, and just hearing it in my own head still is because I've for so long, like I knew that this is what I wanted to do. It just for the longest time just felt so impossible, and it just always felt like something that was years down the line, and then first of all, not really having a say in when it happened, I feel probably contributes to the way that I feel about it. And the unbelievable factor in my head about it. It's just the fact that it still doesn't really entirely feel real. But it's weird because what was always the number one factor that was stopping me was like, well, I got to pay rent. I got to pay for my car. I got to pay for my cell phone. I got to pay for all this stuff. Salary, having a job with a salary and, a guaranteed payment twice a month to me was like, okay, I know what my life costs and I know that I wouldn't be able to afford it without this salary. So I need to build the freelance more and more and more until it can, it can pay. I can be sure that I'm going to be able to pay for my life. And that I realize now that day was never going to come. The day of being completely ready, it would have been, it would have either never come or it would have been like way, way, way too late. Because I was looking for 100% safety, which I realize now does not exist. So I just think that, when it comes to the idea of doing something, because it's risky no matter what, right? Like even for, me now being in a position where I've literally been doing it full time for the last 2 years and I've been making it work and, I've been surviving and still, not making crazy drastic changes to my lifestyle, maybe cutting down on some bullshit. But other than that, being able to make it work. And I realize now that it's, there was never going to be a good day. There was never going to be a perfect time. I was never going to be ready until I was ready. Does that make sense? It was never an issue of being ready in any other way besides being mentally prepared for it, which I don't know if I ever would be. So I mean, there obviously, yes, there are like certain risk factors that you should account for, like knowing when you have at least enough of a base that you could reasonably make it work. And knowing the difference between just like I don't want to just advocate for like, hey, just quit your job and just go full force into something, even if if you're just starting. That's probably not the way. You should still be responsible with your finances to some extent, but also to know that there's never going to be that natural sort of perfect, okay, I'm ready. It's always going to be a dive in and figure it out. I know this now. But yeah, I don't want to talk about this too much because I feel like I've talked about it like forever. I feel like I'm always talking about it, but yeah, if I compare the life of corporate salary, stable, quote unquote stable job versus now, working freelance in a creative role, it just money versus happiness, right? This is kind of like the lessons that I learned from losing a corporate job, being kicked out of the corporate world and being thrown to the wolves. Money versus happiness. There's no amount of money that's ever going to, you know what I'm saying? It's never going. What I learned looking back on it now is that it was never an issue. It was never a matter of money, right? Because I had the money to, I had the money to be able to afford whatever lifestyle I thought was going to, keep me happy and, keep me, keep my life together. And, now living the same lifestyle virtually, with some minor changes, it's not that different. But what is different is the load off of my mind, the load off of my, the amount that my mental health was suffering in exchange for what, I realize now that it's just there is no amount of money that is worth your happiness. There's no salary, there's no benefit, there's nothing that anybody can offer you that will ever make you feel better about a job that you hate, about a life that you hate, about, a life that you don't want to wake up to, a life that you dread getting out of bed for. There's no amount of money that's going to make that worth it. Now, theoretically, having an option between, the safety net of a, corporate shill and the life of a creative freelancer and all the stress and uncertainty that comes with it. I've now essentially had one, I've had the other, and I've had both at the same time. And I know for a fact that the best way to do it was the way that was in favor of the thing that I love to do and my happiness and the thing that I wanted to get out of bed for every day. And the thing that I want to, I get excited about doing. And, losing all that money by losing the job, it does not matter to me. And I feel a little bit ridiculous because I just feel like I wasted so many years just trading all of my time and my freedom and my happiness for money. But I think that it had to happen this way because I wouldn't have known the difference if I hadn't been driven to such levels of suffering. And now I know for sure that, it's the thing that I believe is keeping me from having the thoughts of like, oh, maybe I should go back when it gets really, really, because it's not easy also just, obviously being, living in such a way that nothing is ever guaranteed. And it feels like sometimes some months there's just no rhyme or reason for it, right? Like when big levels of expenses come and then the work is just not there. That's very stressful. When there's, to me, there's like opening a calendar on the first of the month and seeing nothing on it for the whole month is one of the most terrifying things. And just like, oh my God, where, how, what am I going to do? And because that like things like taxes are a thing, things like your car is going to need new tires, you're going to have to feed yourself at some point, and there is just no money in sight. And you're like, okay, because I do have savings. I have savings up, of course, but just the prospect of like, okay, this is what you saved for, but just the stress of feeling like there's nothing coming in, and it's all money that's just flowing out and nothing coming back in. And nothing but time in the world, nothing but time in the day to just stress about it. And it's tough. It is tough to not think about it just constantly. And, that was something that I was struggling with a lot, which was times that were very, very slow, and like very slow seasons for whatever number of reasons, which is, between uncertainty of pandemic rules and just my actual slow season, which are typically the first quarter of the year. All of that combined together just combines for just very slim amounts of work, and just not so much money coming in. And you peel through all the work that I have pending, and then when you run out of stuff to do, and all of a sudden you've got an entire week in front of you, where there's no work incoming, there's nothing on the calendar. That in theory that sounds great. It's like an entire week off. Like, oh my God, like, I think that's the impression that a lot of people would have, is that like, oh my God, I get a break, which is what it seems like. But then when you're in it, it's a full week of just losing my mind, stressing like, oh my God, did I make a mistake? Do I need to look for a part-time job? Do I need to, and just 1,000 questions just pouring in, and just doubting myself at every turn. And again, nothing to distract you from the stress, nothing to distract you from the anxiety, and just all the time in the world to just sit and just freeze like this and just worry about everything. Is this ever coming back? Did I do something? Am I doing something wrong? Did I make a mistake? Am I ever going to work again? Knowing that it will come back, and, stuff, it finds a way, it comes in, and you find a way and you figure it out. And that is kind of the name of the game, is just figuring it out as you go. And it's taxing mentally, and that's kind of the price you pay to play the game, right? And sometimes it feels like I'm not cut out for it, just because it feels like the stress and the anxiety is just so overwhelming, and I just can't imagine another day of it, and just trying to fill your day with other things, but just never finding anything that's enough to distract you entirely and make you feel better about the things that you're worried about. But again, there's no amount of money that's ever going to take away. You'll always find something, right? You'll always find something to stress about. It's just, especially if you're me. And yeah, so it's this weird, like, there's two sides to that coin, which is like, on the one hand, it's great because I have the freedom to kind of live my life however I feel like it. Other than shoots, my day is never particularly scheduled, so it's kind of up to me to decide. I'll wake up, answer whatever emails or DMs or whatever messages I might have missed while I was sleeping, take care of whatever housekeeping stuff that I got to do first thing in the morning, do whatever work that I can, have a nice slow start to the morning, focus on getting good, long, restful sleep, things like that, having a nice, making sure I take care of all of my, my health stuff in the morning. I can go for a run now when it's warming up, and I can just kind of do my day however I feel like it, right? There's nobody breathing down my neck, making sure that I'm working. I just have, I don't have a clock in time and a clock out time. I just have a set of responsibilities that I just need to make sure are constantly taken care of. So on the one hand, I'm always working, but on the other hand, I'm kind of never working. It's weird. It's also weird to kind of draw the line of like, when are you working and when are you taking a break? When do you need a break? When do you need a day off? When do you need this? But I think for me, the way that I've reconciled that in my mind is to stop viewing it as work and life. It's just life. This is my whole life. This is what I do. And it works because I just kind of fuse everything, all my hobbies, my interests, my physical needs, health, fitness, and all that. I find a way to make it work harmoniously together. It all fits. And obviously there are times when it gets a little bit crazier because there are certain scheduled things that I need to do, tasks that I need to accomplish. But for me, this is the way. This is the way that I've always kind of envisioned living my life, which is on my own terms. And to me, that's worth everything. It's worth, losing the salary. It's worth the stress of knowing that like the tax man is coming for you, and knowing that random expenses, credit card bills, and all this stuff, it's all coming for you. But at the end of the day, you figure it out because you don't have a choice. This is life now, and I've accepted that, and I'm ready for whatever. I don't always feel this way. I don't always feel this confident. 90% of the time, I'm just entirely doubting myself. But that's, I feel like there's maybe not so much anymore, but there's kind of an idea that people get of people that are like, the entrepreneur life. I think we're all kind of past the point of believing the working on a beach in whatever Dominican Republic, wearing a bikini, working from my phone, making $10,000 a month. I think we all know that that's not real. Maybe for some people it is. If you're an outlier and you're really doing that, hey, good for you. Really, that's awesome. But it's just not reality for most people, right? Choosing to do something on your own and to build something on your own, it's hard work, and it's a lot mentally, and it's isolating, and it's a lot of the difficulty of it comes from within. A lot of that comes from doubting yourself, it comes from imposter syndrome, it comes from stressing about things that are far beyond your control, but you just can't help but worry about. But that's the true nature of trying to build something on your own. The reality is, I would love to be working on something, sunrise to sunset, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. I would love to be putting in on those hours, but the reality of it is there just isn't always something to work that hard on. Sometimes there's just nothing. And you can invent tasks for yourself. You can invent things to do for yourself, but sometimes, there's only so much, for me, there's only so much client work that's coming in. If I don't have people requesting video shoots or photo shoots, there's nothing for me to really work on. I would love to be working. I would love to be the 24-hour grinding, I would love that, but there's just a lot of the barrier of that is just the opportunity. Sometimes the opportunity is just not there. Theoretically, you could be spending the time looking for it, but other times you just have to recognize when, things come when they come, and you can't try to force everything. So I think there's kind of, there is that whole school of thought, which is just like, oh, you just got to work. You just got to work all the time. You sleep 4 hours and then work 20 hours a day. The reality is, like, if there was something that I was that passionate about, that I wanted to work on 20 hours a day for a month, I would. But a lot of the times it's not a matter of do I want to work. It's just, is it there to work on? And sometimes the opportunity is just not there. Granted, there's also the flip side of that, which is sometimes there are opportunities that you were just deciding that you're not pursuing, or you're ignoring, or you're not putting yourself in the right position to find them. But sometimes you can do all the right things and the opportunities just aren't there. And then you have to recognize that, because you're going to see all the grind culture and all the hustle culture content, and it's just going to make you feel bad. But the reality is you're doing everything that you can, and you just need to be a little bit more patient. And it's hard to be patient when you're having all that content just thrown in your face all the time. And so I don't really know where I'm going with this. I don't know what my point is, but I think I'm just trying to say that, if it's something that you're, if you're one of these people that's like me, wishing that you just feeling like you're not doing enough, feeling like you are not enough, it's just a matter of time. Things happen for different people in different ways at different rates. It's not the same for everybody. There's no cut and paste way to do what we do. That's why we do it. Weirdly enough, part of the thing that makes it so exciting to build something on your own and to do something on your own is the uncertainty of it. Because the uncertainty of it also is where the excitement comes from, right? If you just know what your day is going to be every single day, that's horrible for me anyways. If you just know you're going into the same place, you're driving into the same traffic, you're going to eat the same, bullshit meal for the same 1 hour lunch break, and you're clocking out at the same time, doing the same thing day in and day out. It's safe, but there's no excitement there. To me, there's no life there. For me, again. And but the trade-off is the not knowing. You have to deal with the not knowing, because the not knowing is the source of the excitement. There's no easy way about this whole life thing, is I think where I'm going with this. And whatever it is you're trying to do, it's hard for everybody. There's nobody gets out of this thing easy. Maybe some people do. Maybe you're born into but I think if you're one of the silver spoon people, you're probably not listening to me anyway. So, anyways, that's kind of it. That's kind of all I wanted to rant about. I guess I'm ranting. This is just a rant cast. Let's call it that. My throat is so dry. I haven't done this in so long. I haven't done this much talking. I'm usually behind the camera. The level of setup that went into this whole production, I'm sweating from just putting all this stuff up. Because usually when the camera starts rolling, yes, I'm still, that's when I'm monitoring, but I can kind of take the energy level down a little bit. I don't have to elevate when I have to be on camera. So it's just, yeah. Oh boy. Anyways, listen. The podcast is going to be a lot of fun. I've got a lot of great guests lined up. First guest of the podcast is going to be Margarita DeBari, who I'm talking to tomorrow. I was going to say when I'm going to launch the podcast, but I actually don't know. So look out for that whenever it comes. I'll probably do a little pre-roll into this to let you know when that's launching. But she will be the first guest of season 2. Yes, the first guest of season 2 on the podcast. We're going to talk about. I have no idea. There's a lot of places that conversation can go, so I can't wait for that. But yeah, that's it. The podcast is going to be a lot of great conversations. Probably going to get some useful insight from a lot of very insightful people, and some interesting opinions, hopefully, and some great conversations, some proper banter. You know what I'm saying? Some great stuff. So I hope you stick around for it. Do subscribe if you haven't. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, if you're listening on Spotify, if you're watching on YouTube, maybe consider subscribing. We're gonna have a good time here. We're gonna have some fun people to talk to, and hopefully get some great little nuggets out of everybody, as we did in season 1, but even more, with a little bit of spice added on from the last couple of years. So, I guess that's gonna do it for the 3DD podcast, the return, the reboot, whatever you want to call this shit. Sorry. Let me know. Just just DM me. Who you want to hear from? I want to talk to everybody. After 2 years of talking to nobody, I want to talk to everybody. I'm targeting the people, first of all, that I know, and that I know that I'm going to be able to have a certain level of banter with. So, but from there, who knows? We can go anywhere with this thing. But I do hope you join me. I'm so glad you did. If you're still here, I'm so glad you are. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you for season 2 of the 3DD podcast with me and whoever agrees to talk to me. All right, that's the podcast, guys. Thank you for listening. I will see you next week. You'll see me next week. I hope I see you soon. I'm rambling. I'm gonna cut this off. Okay. Bye.